welcome to another Wednesday night Wildflower Live. How are we all? Hope everyone is well. I am looking frazzled because I am. I've literally just finished packing a load of orders and yeah, running around like a maniac because Jamie's obviously resting up in bed. So he's not been able to help me. So if I look flustered, if I look like I haven't done anything onto my face, I look a mess, that is why. I will just keep it real with you. This is what I am dealing with. And those are just all packed. So, now that we all know that my life is a shambles, we will get on to tonight's live. And I'm really looking forward to tonight because I'm hoping that old John boy is going to pep me up and get us all feeling motivated. So I have seen him on here, so I'm just going to see if I can request him to join. Thanks girls for saying I look good. Oh, I feel absolutely flustered. This hoodie might not be a good idea. Yay! I love.
Can you hear me?
How are you? I can hear you perfectly. How are you, my love?
Not too bad. Lou is making a cup of tea. Don't put the kettle on.
Mine's white, no sugar, Lou.
How are you doing?
Oh, mate, I am flustered. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if you just saw the state of our stock room. This is what happens when Jamie has to not do orders.
You look great. What are you talking about? Look at the state of me.
Oh.
I haven't had a haircut for like 4 months. And then I was like, oh, I'll definitely get it done this week. And I sent you a message yesterday saying, oh, what time's this on Saturday? And then I found out. So,
it ain't on Saturday, love. Oh, God. How are you, though? Are you okay? Because obviously you've had a bit of a, shitter recently. With your back and everything.
Oh, so yeah. So in January, I think it was, I started to get like a pain in my back. And then I think like anybody that's been like both of us really, where we've been in a state where we're that big, there's always this sort of worry in my head when, you know, you feel like a niggle. Is that a niggle? Do you carry on, or is that you just being lazy like the person in the past? And I think I pushed it a bit far and then ended up blowing 2 of the discs. And so I've had those.
A little bit far then.
Oh, it was we had when it proper blew, I couldn't move at all. We had to get an ambulance to come to the house, and then they came and they injected morphine in, and I just couldn't stop laughing then. And I was making them laugh, and they dropped me twice, didn't they, Lou? And she couldn't put that cannula in. It was a nightmare. And then when they put an epidural into the back.
Fabulous things.
And then shaved the disc off a couple of weeks afterwards, and then it's just been recovering. But again,
love you.
It's another challenge to the maintenance, isn't it, really?
And you've had your fair share of challenges. So obviously I wanted to get you and Grace were really my the top of my list of who I wanted to get on to discuss maintenance, because I just think your journeys, you've both had different. Obviously she's had pregnancies in between her maintenance. You haven't had pregnancy yourself, but you've had your own medical issues, and life's just been up and down. I think it's important to show people that it's not just you lose the weight and then life is this magical golden rainbow Wizard of Oz land.
Exactly that. What if you're going to get anything from it, you're learning that you can triumph over anything if you just keep going then. But what you need to realize is there's no such thing as this target that you're going to get to, this happy ever after that our whole generation's grown up on watching. We've almost been brought up by the TV of, oh look, we're all going to be good people at the end, everything's going to be really happy. And that isn't not true, but the point is, the end is the end, and we don't really want to ever be an end, do we? We want it to carry on going. And what I got from that first stage of the plan, that real quick weight loss, because I started out about 25.5 stone, and I
was going to say, take us back to when you started. What was kind of life like pre-1-to-1 diet for John?
So, I mean, I was like a secret eater, and I was a comfort eater as well. And I'd always been in the, I mean, I've been 20 plus stone, I'd say, from about 12, 13 onwards, always morbidly obese. But food, I was using it in the same way as people who use like a drug, essentially. And then one of the things I found that is really sort of quite useful to do with food is use it as a reward, but don't use it as a consolation. Because if you start using food as a consolation, I don't know if you or anyone else is watching this, I've had in the past like a bad day and I've gone, oh, do you know what? You can have a kebab or a burger or whatever tonight to make up for this bad day. And then it keeps you going through that day and you get this jump from it. But actually what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to live in a life that you're not happy with in order to have this treat afterwards that's sort of playing into why you're not happy in the first place. And whereas as a reward, you never get that negative cycle. Like there's so much joy in food, if that makes sense. Like even though I know that
People are scared to say that. Like I was speaking to on Grace and you were talking about it the other week, and we said like Christmas. I was like, food's such a huge part of Christmas. There's no point us trying to deny it and saying that it's this evil thing. Like food is a massive part of our lives and should be enjoyed. But like you said, it's about using it in the right ways and not using it as like to self-medicate or like in some cases even like subconsciously punish yourself like in those cycles.
yeah, not using it to balance the seesaw of you being able to say, oh, my life's worth living. Because really, actually, if you take that crutch away, you'll focus a bit more on what it is that's making you so upset in the first place. And that's something, you know, everyone comes to weight loss different. But if you come, you know, with a, and I can't speak for everyone, but if you come like me with a BMI 45-ish, there's other things going on there. And you're gonna have to unpick those later on. And if you use this plan properly, those steps as you're stepping up, and that year after target is was the most sort of transformative for me. And like I've got pictures of at the same weight over that year of my body changing as much as it did in that first one where it's coming down, because it first starts to come down and then the shape starts to come, and the two things are sort of vastly different. And if people realize actually no, there's still a load, like if anything, the feeling that you get while you're doing that first lot of weight loss comes from the way other people are seeing you. And then the second stage for me is all that core strength started to build, and I started to get used to smiling. Like, that was like quite nice. But like in fact, you're like, have you know the computer game Street Fighter? Like,
Yeah.
you've got that health bar at the top. Like we've all essentially got that health bar, and every day we wake up and it's recharged X amount. But if you have to wake up and it's a battle to roll yourself out of bed,
Oh, don't.
up 2 or 3 of those hit points, that whatever your vim and vigor, you've used up 5 points to get out of bed. That isn't the world that you should have. Now, if you're on plan and you wake up and you go and look at yourself in the mirror and you're not used to being 5 stone down, that health bar gets bigger. So it's like you're playing Legend of Zelda and you start off and you've got 3 little hearts at the start. And then as you progress through, you're going to get more hearts as you become more resilient, and you can face these bigger and bigger challenges around you. And like you said, like to be honest, since the weight loss has happened, a lot more has gone wrong than has gone right. But at the same time,
You are like a Shakespeare tragedy, I'm not gonna lie.
but it's so funny you said about Grace. I'm gonna have to, because every time you said it, I can't stop smiling because
Isn't she just an angel?
well,
Like
I met her
literally. Oh,
at the Slimmer Awards when I was up for my the Man of the Year, and I didn't win. And I met her just before in the hotel room. Her consultant and my consultant, really good friends. And it was already like we'd walked into this place, and I hadn't really realised because everything had been online. We walked into the convention, and hundreds of people were like, "Oh, it's him!" And I was like, "Oh," like already a bit sort of flustered. And then we walked in and met Grace, and she was like the nicest person ever. And then like my consultant, sorry, she's really embarrassing. I just realised we started a story that she shouldn't have started it. We're going to do it. My consultant went, "John,
I hope she's watching.
I had a lady call me the other day and said she'd been back to your house. And I was like, oh, like thinking, I thought, oh, I might as well pay a call. And I went, oh, well, you know, back in my single days. And then Lisa, my consultant, went, she's about 70, John. She said she was your dinner lady and she went home with one of your friends. And I was like, oh my God. And that was how I met Grace. And so for like the next 10 minutes, we sort of like smiled and nodded and had no idea.
Oh,
So
no,
yeah,
she is so lovely. And mine's similar. I didn't have a 70-year-old dinner lady in my house, but mine was similar in that we'd been at convention a day and I went back in the evening, and I get like quite nervy in situations like that. And I think because when you go online, like I'm just sat in my spare bedroom, so it's very different to being in a room full of people who see you kind of every day. And she just came over, put her hands on my shoulder and was like, don't be overwhelmed, you're fine. And I was like, oh, thank you, everything's okay. Like she's just lovely. And like you and her, to me, just, you are evidence that this plan works. And I get a lot of people who come on to plan, as I'm sure you've had in the past and at the present, that have a lot of issues with food, have a lot of that emotional connection. And the question they'll ask is, how did you work on that? Like, what did you do to make that better? So what was it that you did to help that side? But obviously plan gives you that space from food. But how did you cope when you then started getting those days when you were like, I have had a really crap day and all I want is a kebab?
Right. So what I do or did for a living was I did my apprenticeship in sort of lean manufacturing, dairy science, and then like I've done qualifications all basically in efficiency around production lines and just constantly making things more and more efficiently based on what you need being the output, as opposed to just making as much as possible and balancing these value streams. And then essentially I started thinking, like, how am I able to go to work and manage multi-million-pound projects where everything sort of works on time when it's supposed to work, and you know, you're happy, everything all day, and then I'd get in the car and like burst into tears, go into the drive-through, buy 4 McDonald's, eat all of them, come home, throw them in a bin up the road. But ultimately, those same skills that we were using at work to just look honestly at the way things are now, take away all emotion. This is how it is now. This is where we'd like it to be. This is the plan we're going to get there. And these are the things that are going to happen every day. And if you can break, like, actually, if you can look at this, those low steps as actually being this really simple time where all you have to do, even if like you just lie, and I'm not saying this is what you do, but even if you have a day where you are so low that you just lie in bed, not looking at it, you will still win on this diet, because that's all you're learning to do at the start. But what I got from the low calories, and this is the thing that I don't think people understand, is I feel like up until about 4 years ago, I just felt hunger as hunger, and that hunger could have come from a trigger of a negative thought. It could have come from being genuinely hungry. It could have come from being tired. It could have come from...
Yeah, you don't know the difference, do you? It's just literally all the same.
But you get that signal and you know that something sort of sweet and is going to fill that void. So...
Yeah, it's never like an apple or like a chicken stir fry. It's like, no.
So it's funny you say that. So there's a thing, like a science experiments called the marshmallow test, where they offered children, I think it was a Harvard study, and they'd offer preschool children 1 marshmallow at the start of the day, or if they didn't have it, they could have 2 at the end. And then they followed these children through their life. And the ones that were able to delay that gratification and see, look, if I just don't have this right now, everything, I'm going to get double just in this short space of time. And then these people were able to go forward and be much more productive through life. And that delaying of gratification was something I couldn't do. And I think as your situation gets worse, the idea of delaying gratification becomes, you know, even more alien to you, because it's like because I always compare sort of weight management to money management because I've been shitting.
Do you know what I was just about to say to you? That as much as I couldn't control food, I would be like, my credit card would always be maxed out. Like, and do you know what's really funny now? So this is like an anecdotal experience of how both these things have improved in my life. I've been looking to get myself a cheeky little vlogging camera, doing a bit more of the old YouTube in the new year. And I know that I'm going to get a bonus at the end of the year. So I've been looking on Amazon today though, going, oh yeah, but it's on a Black Friday deal, it's really good, but I don't really want to buy it now. I want to wait until I get this bonus so I don't feel the pinch. And I haven't bought it. I have actually waited. And I would never have done that before. Before I would have been like, no, just buy it now, just buy it now, it'll be here tomorrow. And like you say, it's exactly the same with food. You'd be like, no, I'm not willing to stand for 20 minutes and wait for that to cook whenever I can just...
And I used to do a thing
grab something else.
It's a bit cheesy, and I'm not saying this is what everyone should do, but I'm saying if you're in a situation like I was at the start, it's, you know, it's a mess, and you've got to make it better somehow. And when you were saying about you never fancy the healthy option, for my first few months on plan, that would be my go-to thought. So we have a thing in sort of engineering safety called TF30, where I love a food. But yeah, TF30, and it actually just means think for 30 seconds. So it's before you go into something, you go, am I going to have my fingers chopped off if I put my hand in there? And you just have that 30 seconds just to bring the human to the forefront and go, is this right? And I was basically, all of my weight loss stuff is taking these continuous improvement and Six Sigma processes and Japanese sort of problem solving techniques and putting them into weight loss with the things that I've learned from, can't get my words out, from cognitive behavioral therapy, and putting those things together. And then what I used to do is a thing where I'd think, I'm hungry, there's some raw cauliflower in the fridge, go and eat it. And then I think, well, I don't want that. So I go, well, you can't be hungry then. And like,
yeah, that's like what your mum used to say to you as a kid, isn't it? Like, my mum was forever saying to you, she'd be like, have an apple. I'd be like, I don't want an apple. You're not hungry now, you're not having anything, you can wait. But it is true.
But don't you think that so much of the wisdom or the knowledge that you've learned yourself through graft over this last year, getting to where you are now, a lot of it could be boiled down to these same pearls of wisdom that we were given as a child by people that didn't quite understand what they were doing. So there was no moral message behind it, and it became just words. So we ignored it. So there's so many things.
Oh, mum would say that you don't need an apple. Like, you know, you have to have the apple, whilst also like shoveling ice cream down our neck and having type 2 diabetes and a 12 pack of Krispy Kremes in the fridge. Like, there was no, like you say, I think it was the fact that the knowledge was there, but almost the understanding of how to implement those habits into a household or into children wasn't there.
Yeah, like when you get a math teacher that doesn't inspire you, like when because you reach. I used to think when I was at school, I hated English literature. I used to think this is ridiculous, but it was because I had teachers that they didn't, if they did have a passion for it, they didn't understand how to convey it to the audience.
Yeah.
Because now I'm obsessed with that sort of thing, and I'll sit and I'll read it. Whereas at the time, I could never bridge that because that passion wasn't there. And I find that the same sometimes because when I try and look at Instagram as a whole, like as a diet industry as a whole, and put myself, the person that I used to be and the person that I am now, and the person that I used to be would look at it and would just be completely confused. The person that I am now looks at it and goes, I'm still confused, because it's just the Wild West, isn't it? And you add that.
Yeah, it is.
That desperation of how you feel when you're that person, and it's just the perfect breeding ground for people to be taken advantage of. Like I've had
oh, it's so sad, really. Like, you think about like all the things you did. Like, I remember probably the worst thing I ever decided to do for myself was I went on weight loss pills, ephedrine, which is basically speed. And I remember like literally taking these pills and sitting at home and my heart beating out of my chest. And then the doctor being like, you need to stop taking these are not good for you. But I was so desperate for something that I was like, no, I'll risk my heart just exploding in my chest if it means that I can lose weight. And when you're dealing with that level of desperation in someone, the vulnerability to be exploited is just so high.
Exactly. And if you've been on a diet for 10 years and somehow you're 10 stone heavier than when you started, you can start being one of those people that goes, I don't think diets work. And it's like, what they definitely
Exactly.
works if you follow it. And that doesn't matter whether it's one-to-one or any other diet plan that's based on a calorie deficit. But for me,
Yeah, that bit's really simple, but like the one-to-one was different for me and what I hope for any of my slimmers because of Gemma. And it could have, I say, that would have been anyone in their consultant. She's very special to me, but anyone in their consultant, that relationship, you almost feel like they block out all that noise that's going on out there and all that confusion and just kind of shelter you from it. And I felt like I was in my own little one-to-one bubble with Gem, like for my whole journey.
like my consultant, Lisa, lost a life-changing amount of weight 15 years ago, maybe even longer. She was one of my mum's closest friends when we were growing up. Loved her to bits when she was big and jolly, and then watched her like fly through. Like she's made a whole life out of one-to-one, and she loves it, and she's wonderful, and she's just a living example. And that's just, I mean, I love her like a second mum, really. I think she's wonderful. Gemma, your consultant, I followed her all through my slimming, and then I wanted to say hello to her at the Slim Awards. Went like, hello. I didn't know what to say. And then there was the second time I saw her. There was at the roadshow in Southampton, and it was really windy, and there were these like revolving doors. So I thought they were electric, and I walked in, and then they stopped, and there was like 50 consultants inside, and I was standing there going, the doors have broke. Like that. And the guy came in and was like, you have to push them, mate. And like, after that, I was like, I'm not speaking to anyone. So I just sort of sat there, and like, as soon as it ended, I was off. So I've never really had a proper chat to Gemma, but I'm a big fan.
Oh no, she is an actual beauty, and I think that there is just some of the loveliest people you will ever meet in your life in this community, and I just think it's because we've all been in that place, whether it's 1 stone, 2 stone, 20 stone you have to lose. Like, I think you don't come to this plan unless you've got to a place where you're like, I don't know where else to go. And, I hope that in the future that will change and it will become seen as more mainstream, because I think it could save you a lot of heartache in the long run if this was an earlier plan that you went to. But no, I think that kind of camaraderie of having to deal with that real shit existence or that shit time kind of unites everyone then, doesn't it?
There's so many like shameful secrets as well that we've got that you're never gonna let out in a group situation, or maybe you are once you've reached a point you can start to deal with them. I always try and make a point of being really honest about all of the ridiculous things that I used to do, just literally so that if anyone else is doing them and they're not at that point, they can go, oh right, okay. at least I'm starting.
I'm not alone. That's like when I started and I was like, my first goal was to fit my ass in the bath. I was like, it don't fit. Like, I'm 20 stone. Like, it does not fit in a standard bath. And then I was like, there'll be so many other people there that have that and like, that feel it's so taboo to speak about it, that they then feel even more isolated and even more alone. And it was funny what you said about going through the drive-through and then putting the stuff in the bin before you got home. Like, I do that all the time.
And like I'd hide stuff down the back of sofas and behind I'd eat things and then throw them behind the fridge and all sorts of odd things like that. You'd pull things out and find all these wrappers. That's the sort of thing you see with drunks and like addicts. There's something sort of going on.
There's a secretiveness about it in there that you can't be. You don't want to be challenged on your behavior because it isn't right, but you don't want to be challenged and have to kind of face that. Those kind of questions that are going to get asked of you. But like, I think we've, I remember as a kid, I think I spoke to Siobhan about this before, and like my first real memory of like kind of comfort secret eating was we had a freezer in our garage, and Mum was a yellow sticker fiend. If there was a yellow sticker on something in the supermarket, that woman was buying it and freezing it no matter what its recommendations were. And she'd frozen a load of like mini pies, like they were like mini lemon curd pies. I literally went in and was just eating them from the freezer. And like that, I would have only been like 10.
I remember I always used to go to bed from probably about 10 onwards, dreaming that one day I was going to be an adult and I could go to the shop and buy a whole leg of lamb and cook it and eat it all, because there'd never ever been enough lamb. I'd always felt at every dinner I'd ever had, there was never
You want to come to Wales?
one day I was going to put enough lamb on my plate. But I was like brought up by my grandparents, who they were like, you know, they'd grown up during rationing, and they were we used to eat such boring, very simple food. And then to sort of transition from that at 10 to McDonald's, it was such a change, and it was such a comfort. And then after that, I went to boarding school. Like, that was basically the only comfort I used to have. I used to go to, it's so sad, I used to go up to the Quick Save and buy these like 24 packs.
Quick Save!
24 packs.
That's a blast.
Remember those Calippo drinks that had the little straw that you poked in? And I used to have them. I used to keep them under my bed. And when I used to like have panic attacks at boarding school, I used to bite them like a vampire and suck the sugary stuff out. And think, everything's going to be okay.
It's fine.
Oh,
But isn't it mad though what you do? But that sugar and stuff, it does stuff in your brain, doesn't it?
It definitely does. And that's why, you know, if you can, once you get to stop laughing. Once you get to a place where you're happy, food can be this brilliant reward, but it can't be that consolation. And then again, going back to what I do for a living, like when you're looking at a continuous improvement project on a production area, you like, if you take a chocolate bar line, say, you've got a machine that makes the centers, and that can only go so fast. So if your whole process can only be as fast as the slowest part, if that makes sense. So all the factors of you that play into how you're going to be able to follow the plan, you need to focus on the weakest. And the same as when you're doing like a cost benefit, I don't know why I'm drawing graphs, but you can, when you do like a cost benefit analysis, you want to be going for that low hanging fruit all the time. And going back to like the one thing that really sort of resonated with me from what I was doing for a living and the way this plan works was, I used to work in like dairies where we were commissioning like real massive multi-million-pound bits of kit, and you've got on one end the operator that was going to run it, and the other end you've got a chemist, you've got engineers, all sorts of different really complex sort of what's the word, like sections of these things that all had to come together, but the operator had to run it. And what you'd find in these root cause analysis sessions would be the guy that's designed it, that knows all the science, would say it can't do that. The operator would say, if you press this, it will do it. And you'd go out to it, you'd press it, and it'd do it. And the guy would go, oh, well, I didn't know it could do that. And then this is what I find when I look at people, when like I've sort of followed quite a few people that are nutritionists, and I speak to them, and you get a lot of negativity about this plan. And yet when I then talk to them, I'll get an hour into the conversation and then they'll block me. And I'm like, you know, you can't do that.
You can't just say, you can't just block out like the noise that it's working.
I completely agree with the fact that there's a science behind what we're doing, but the idea that people with exactly the same qualifications as them hasn't designed this plan, and that it's just so good that essentially then it's been simple enough for everyone else to be able to use it. And if their plan was like, this is the thing I tend to like sort of turn around and say a lot of, not that I do spend my life arguing with nutritionists, because not when there's, no, I do quite a bit, but but only because I want to know. Like, you'd be like, once you, I'm sort of, I find that the further I've gone, you get more questions than answers in terms of like, what am I supposed to be doing? And I think it's got to come down essentially to you, what you really want, and making sure that the thing you want is what you want and not what you think you want because you've seen it on somebody else's Instagram. And there's no way, if you really follow this plan for 12 weeks or 24 weeks or something like that, you're not going to have
46 weeks.
Well, I'm like, for me, it was always, I'd do 12 weeks and then step up, but I didn't.
Yeah, that's what I did.
What I did, I sort of, I got the first real bulk of the weight off in 2017. And then as soon as my BMI was 29.9, lots of the pain that I was in went away, but some of it didn't. And so I started to go and investigate it. And things like, another thing I'm sure everyone will like identify with is if you're obese, you're not going to get any sympathy really from any doctors. Like, maybe I'm wrong there, but for me, it was you sort that out first before we're even going to listen to you. And maybe that's
It's
fair enough.
always the first thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, go away and lose the weight. And then if you've still got a problem once you've lost the weight, then come back and we'll have a look into it then.
Well, I was in like chronic pain all the time, but then once I'd lost the weight and we did the scans, found like I've got arthritis in my shoulder and these things that were essentially compounding the reason why I was gaining weight, because I couldn't really exercise and
Couldn't move.
Yeah, it would break quickly. And so I had the shoulder replaced, and so I had a year where I'm pretty much maintained with a BMI of 29.9. And that's something that people should, if they do reach a point in their weight loss where they think like, you know, I can't carry on any further, then just tread water where you are. Because actually, if you're trying to learn to maintain, your BMR with a BMI of 29.9 versus your BMR, the amount of calories you need each day at 29.9 is going to be a bit higher than what you need at 24 or 25, where you might want to end up being eventually. But it's going to be a heck of a lot less than what you were consuming with a BMI in the 30s. So it's always an opportunity to go, whatever you do, we don't undo the work that's gone before. And when we were talking before about comparing money to like to that calories, money's a great one because we all earn different amounts of money. We all want to live our lives differently with it. We've got different priorities, but ultimately we've all got X amount to spend. And then you can look at calorie counting as this way of closing you in and saying what you can't have, or you can look at it as saying this is what you can have. Can you imagine like if a banking app came out with, oh, we're not going to show you your balance. What we're going to do is we're just going to teach you some positive habits. So probably at the end of the month, you won't have overspent. That isn't going to happen. Like it isn't going to happen. And the same where if you need to pay off a debt and you need to do it quick, maybe the best thing you can do when you look and you eliminate everything that isn't essential. And that is basically what these steps of the plan do. They take those things out, and then you go up those steps and you add in the things that you want to add in. And when you add them in, you taste them for what they are, you see them for what they are, and then you can start looking at everything and get the bits that you want, because you might find actually the things that was making you obese were actually the bits that you don't miss. Like it wasn't birthday, Christmas, holidays making me fat. It was getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, putting 6 mince pies into my mouth, and then getting back into bed and thinking, they don't count, you know. And
if you've slept, it doesn't count.
But you don't miss anything like that. You eliminate the waste, all the bits, and you make sure these things where you're going to spend them, you spend them on things that you want. Just like with your money, then you start all of a sudden you've always got a bit of savings there if a big weekend does pop up. All these, it's such a nice place to be. And when you can get there, going back to that sort of, you know, the hit points, you've increased your hearts by putting yourself through this sort of hero's journey, because it is essentially like when you look at what somebody's got to do to train for a marathon, or what any world-class athlete say does for, you know, 6 months. Obviously they've been doing it for years. I'm not trying to compare myself to anything like that, but I'm saying in terms of what you have got to literally put yourself through for an extended period of time to lose 10 stone, if you can do that and latch onto the things that are sort of got you to do that, you can do anything. Like, but you make sure.
That's it. Sometimes I think you just need is that positive mindset with it. And I think for me, like the reason why I enjoy maintenance so much is because I just I did stuff I never thought I could do in losing weight. Do you know what I mean? I didn't even think I could lose 2 stone, let alone like over 9. And when you do that and you build your self-belief up, it's it is a lot easier when you're here because I'm like, well, I could do that. If I could do that, I could do this. And funnily enough, when I started planning, I was like, actually, if I can push a baby out or have her yanked out in the beginning of lockdown, I can do anything. I say that to everyone. I'm like, if you got through lockdown, if you got through the last 18 months of just craziness, you can do anything. You need to tap into that.
Yeah,
Is that my
exactly.
cup of tea, Lou?
I thought she was quiet. Sorry, I think she's lost on TikTok.
No, I'm listening.
Oh, you are listening. But what you were saying there, like I tried to sort of break down everything that I was doing into sort of five rules. Like I've worked big company I've worked for, they'll have their sort of guiding principles, and some of them have been a bit obscure and I've not understood. I've worked for other companies, like the last company I worked for was amazing, and they had these principles that they were driven by, and any decision that we made, even if we made a decision at 3 o'clock in the morning that was the wrong one and it cost hundreds of thousands of pounds, as long as we could justify that back to the 5 principles, it was going to be all right because you could understand where it was coming
The
from.
thought behind it.
Exactly, yeah. And those principles made real sense to me, and I tried to build those into what I was doing in my weight loss, and then I'd try and pass that on, and not so people can have my 5, but so they can think of their own 5. So my first one was always having a plan, always knowing what your next 24 hours was, because a lot of that anxiety that's coming, it comes from the moments where you don't know what you're doing from the next minute, and then all of a sudden it starts to creep up, and that voice, over time, that negative voice, you can start to realize all that negative voice wants is you to be comfortable. And once you can teach that voice, comfort doesn't necessarily come from doing the easiest thing right now in the moment. Actually, that voice can start over time being a guide, but at the start, it might be feel a bit negative, or it might not be on your side. So you've got your solid plan, you've got your 24 hours. You don't need to go back to that questioning guy. And then also you're going to be positive, and positivity isn't about going, everything's fine. It's about looking at that situation as honestly as possible and then making the best of it, whatever that is. And then, so you're going to be positive, you're honest, you've got your plan. And then that reason why, because, there's the self-loathing that goes into, any kind of like abuse like that because it is, if your BMI is in the 40s, there's some, that comfort element, all of that. So you're not going to do it for you. If anything, you'll self-sabotage. So let's do it for the people that we love. Just like in the same way, you'll go to the doctor and they'll say, do this, this, and this. And you go, yeah, whatever. And then I'll go to the vet.
This is it.
I'll go to the
I
vet.
always think when people say, don't do it for anyone else, do it for you. I was like, that's not going to work for me because my BMI is 49.5. Like,
Yeah, if you were going
I
to do
didn't
it, you'd have done it.
yeah, it would be done. I didn't do it for like I've always been really clear that this journey was done for Poppy. Now, it doesn't need to be a child that makes you do it, but like you said, I think it's it's looking at your life and saying like, actually, is a really hard thing I had to sit down one day and understand was whose life am I impacting by being overweight? Because you do, like it does trickle out. I was impacting Jamie's life, my parents' life because they were worried about me, my friends' lives because I wouldn't go and do stuff with them. So actually, I think there isn't a negative in sometimes saying I am doing this to better other people's lives, because
Exactly.
typically we are people that look after those around us and completely forget about ourselves.
And I think,
So it can be more of a driver.
yes, like so much so. And if we can do it for the people that already love us, they're the ones that are going to be happy at the end. If we try and do it to show someone,
And cheer you on
yeah,
the whole
exactly,
way.
they'll find someone else. And then going back to that second bit about the honesty, like, I worked in a factory full of very manly men. I was there prancing around, talking about my feelings, squealing when a loud noise went off, just being me. So you can imagine the thought of, oh God, what is he doing now? Sort of waddling in like, well, that doesn't work like that. But those guys, they were the like not the most supportive at the start, but you shouldn't ever expect this. This is the thing that I was probably the biggest thing I can sort of say to people is, don't try and put on this, I'm on this super hard diet because I'm nails and I'm this, because anybody that's looking at you is seeing straight through that. Like, what I found was really, I've been a yo-yo and a failed dieter for such a long time that like what really triggered my weight loss was my 30th birthday. I'd been doing overtime for months. It was the biggest I'd ever been. I'd been putting off going to see my grandpa for months and months and months. And then we were about to go. Literally, we're in the car and we get a phone call that he'd had a stroke. We never, by the time we sort of got up there, never really got another proper word out of him. We had this like moment where we were trying to like take my grandma out of the room, and he was like trying to get his last words out saying, we've discussed this, you need to do this now. And I was like, oh my fuck, like I'm not a man in this situation. I'm not a man. I can't look after everyone. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm never going to let myself be in this situation again. Like, it absolutely mortified me. And then we had this sort of 3 weeks of him dying, and then the funeral, I couldn't tie my own shoelaces because I was so fat. And I had to stand up and do this eulogy and say, oh, he made me the man that I am today. And I thought, no, he wanted me to be something very different. And I was never going to have this moment again in my life where I was going to look at that moment that of showing him is never going to come back. And like an idiot, like my grandma, she held on for like a year. And this is like really pathetic, but I'd lost quite a lot of weight by the end of that year, but she got dementia. She hadn't got any idea what she was doing. That was when, like, and I was up there going, look, Grandma, look. And she was like, oh, no idea what it was. But just going, yes. Yeah.
She's going, oh, he's a lovely boy.
I just like, she was just my biggest fan though. I remember like, even when I was like morbidly obese, I'd get a haircut and I'd go over there and she'd go, oh my gosh, people are going to be, they're going to want him to be a model. They're going to want him to be a model. And that was the sort of person she was. It was so, like, she was amazing.
Love her.
Ever showed them like this, if you know what I mean. And regardless of whether it came from a really miserable thing that started it, you know, I was still going to miss them a year later, or still miss them now. But what it's turned into is this. And then a year later, my brother and sister have started. They're like 9 and 10 stone down each, and that's stayed off. We've got another 2 Pete's potentially starting in January. So we could, at the moment, we're a 30 stone down family or 28 stone down family. And
That is madness.
We could get to about 55 before we're done, maybe. I don't know. But so we'll have to. Well,
you make me and Jamie look pathetic, to be honest. Like, we should just.
I've got no idea how to like present all my stuff on Instagram. I look at yours and I'm just in awe of you. It's like, oh, I can't even spell.
Well, I've already got a TF30 like logo in my head, so I'll get that made for you and sent over. But it's amazing, like you say, like how it's in those moments of absolute despair that we can come out and be the strongest. Like I said last week with Grace, like I remember being at my mum's funeral and seeing that JCB parked behind a tree, and I just thought, oh my God, if I keep doing what I'm doing, God love you, Mum, but I'm going to be JCB'd into a ground one day. Like, what am I doing with my life? And then it is hard. Like now I always think I would have loved her to see this version. She never saw this version of me, and this would have been the version of me she wanted. Yeah. And they love you regardless, but this would be the you know, who she would have loved to have seen.
That fucking horrible pain is with all this work you've done, you're pushing it like a muscle, and you're just building it and building it and building it until it stops being so sore, and it just becomes this sort of stronger thing, and you can start tying in all of the pride of what you've done into that same memory of that person. And then all of a sudden, everything that you're doing is that echo of their love for you. And I think that's quite wonderful. And even the worst thing that can start us off can then be this transcendent thing. But for me, it's about trying to find the people who haven't like had their life completely fell apart yet, who are still just like, I can probably go 3 more stone before I'm crying in my car, John. I'll call you through.
But this is what I mean. This is why, like, I'm so, like, I've always really been passionate about like spreading the word of the plan, because I'm like, really, just do not let yourself get to that point. Like, don't let it get there. And I don't know if you saw Nell and Heidi's YouTube video this week.
I haven't.
Do you know what? So a sidetrack story here. this week on my stories, I talked about how one of my goals when I first started plan was to just get out the front door with Poppy 3 times a week. And I remember there's a post office in the village, probably like a 20-minute walk away. It's up a bit of a hill. We're in Wales, there's hills everywhere. It's up a bit of a hill. And the first time I ever walked to the post office and made it back, I was watching your YouTube video that you did with Heidi and Now. And I remember having you in my ears, and I even, because like it took me a while to walk, I even, when you finished, went back and started playing it again. And that's surrounding yourself with people that inspire and motivate you and making hard times positive is by pulling on other people's kind of stories and motivation.
Right,
And that's what
do a
you
quick
did for
shout out.
me.
Sarah Francis.
Oh, but sorry, 1 second.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say before I forget, the reason I said that about hiding now is they did a video this week that talked about reaching out before it gets to that point where you're 3-4 stone heavier. So if it's something that you're kind of thinking about, go over to their YouTube channel and watch it, because now just hit it on the head, like completely. But sorry, shout out.
No. That was. But for me, I sort of feel like wherever we are right now, that's where the battle line is drawn. And it's up to us whether we draw that battle line at 25. Because I was working harder on my diet, it felt like, even though I wasn't, at 25.5 stone, than I've really felt like I've had to put in for the last year or so with my conscious eating. I still have to be on top of it, but nothing, it's been a constant letting go of the reins all the time with checks and balances in place so that if a rise starts to happen, I've got a band that I'm happy to be in. But at the moment it starts to approach in the top end of that band, I need to look back at what I've been doing the last 3 months and saying, oh, something's not right here. And then obviously, like I was sort of saying before, my whole weight loss altogether has been so broken up with illness almost. Like the shoulder, really, I sort of had the shoulder replaced, had the bicep tendon detached, I had some tendons cut off my leg, I had the disc done in my back. The shoulder, I had it all sort of a few ups on it before the replacement as well. So I sort of just had constantly one thing after another. But also as well, I had to constantly look at what was going in my mouth because a lot of the time I couldn't really do any exercise other than walking. And then it's took a real long time to get, and it's still not really there, that movement in that. And then the same with like your grip is your bicep, sort of.
Yeah.
If that's not there, it's like, take my strong hand. No, it's not what it used to be. And then, but again, it's about positivity being, look, this is the best it can be. What can it be? And then also as well, and this isn't really a way to look at something, but you know, sort of technically disabled now, but I was definitely disabled before. Like this is the thing for you. And like just recently when my back's gone, I've been lying on the sofa and looking over at the remote control and this sense of shame in me going, oh Lou, you passed me that remote. Whereas like a couple of years ago, that would have just been standard practice. I'd forgotten what it was like to have to psych myself up, to get out of a car, to get up out of a sofa, to do things that now I can jump up and do. And then the same as this sort of feeling of the things that we can do to lift our spirits. We can't just lift the spirits, but our actions influence those emotions over time. Our actions, the horizon is broadened significantly being in this body than being in the body that I used to. Well, I say that, I'm crippled at the moment, but I'm hoping
once you're healed.
But I mean, like me and my friends, we used to just meet up, get hammered somewhere in the country, stay in some like cheap hotel. I'd come home the next day. They would say, "How was everyone?" And I'd say, "I haven't got a clue. I don't know. I can barely remember going home." And then it's like your friendships aren't developing. So now, like, we don't really meet up drinking. We meet up in Winchcombe in the Cotswolds because it's sort of central for all of us for where we live. And we meet up there, 6 a.m, flash of coffee, and then we're out doing like 40 like odd K walks up massive hills. And all of a sudden, our friendship started to develop again as adults. it was almost like it stopped at 13 when we discovered that booze.
Booze.
And then didn't progress in any way until we hit about sort of 34, which is like sort of dreadful, really, isn't it? And then
I think so many people are guilty of that though, and so many like relationships you have, you may realize that you've not got much more. Like I always say, like whenever I went on 1B and Jamie was still eating, I felt like I'd severed like the biggest connection our relationship had, which I mean, how sad is that? Like he's the love of my life, he's amazing, but I felt that by not eating together, we were breaking one of the biggest parts of the day when we connected. Whereas now, like we've like refound each other.
Yeah, bet you have. I've always said you can't have a 4-inch belly and a 2-inch willy. It just doesn't work. You gotta bring that belly in. But like for me and Lou, she is like what like 6 stone soaking wet. Like if Lou misses a meal, we have to like contact the doctor. She had these like antibiotics a couple of years ago that like burnt her throat, and we had to drive 3 times a day to McDonald's so that she could have one of those like, what was it that you were having? Like this high calorie frozen shake essentially that could go down, because if she
I love her.
From eating, you start seeing her back ribs. And that again, when you look at us do, you think like if you were to take me, you sort of see these sort of pictures can you behind, like if an alien had landed while we were walking the dog 5 years ago, we'd have got out and gone, they are 3 separate species. They wouldn't have gone, oh look, there's 2 people and a dog, because like it just looks so different. Do you remember that woman with dementia that used to live opposite us at Watermead, and used to do her bins? And that once she saw us together, she was having a bit of a odd day, and she just looked up and went, oh, you must fucking squash her. And we were just like, but
Is your recycling?
yeah, that was it. But then when we moved the bed out, the bar was bent. So potentially I was. But I think you're into it. Though.
Oh.
No, I'm joking.
See, me and Jamie were just fatties together.
But it's like that, going back to that thing of doing it for the people that you love, if you then can start, like, you can then start to see how your relationship gets better because of the work that you've done. And then you were saying before, it does impact everyone else's life. Like, I'd start having these like panic attacks hours before a party because I'd have this like trying to fit clothes on. You'd realise, oh, I've just been in like sweatpants for 2 years and now nothing fits me and I feel gross and it's everyone else's fault and I don't want to go. And then you lash out. And one of the biggest things me and Lou just had to say to each other, like right at the very start, was I am being a twat in situations and it can't carry on. I can't be a knob in order for you just to back down and suggest a takeaway or something. I had to say to Lou, look, again, it goes back to the positivity and the honesty of saying, this is what I need to do. I've got to do it. It's going to be good for both of us. Help me out. We've got an opportunity in a relationship to have twice the amount of opportunities to get things wrong or double the opportunities to get them right. And again, that going back to the honesty and the, what's it?
I was going to say, you had your planning, you had your honesty, we had, what was the other one? Plan, honesty.
When all of those fail, just get to tomorrow. Just get to tomorrow. In the chimp paradox, he calls it like taming your chimp. So if I'm there going, Big Mac, Big Mac, Big Mac.
Such a good book. I don't know if it's because we both come from project management backgrounds, but if no one has read The Chimp Paradox and you're someone that feels you struggle with that voice in your head, like taking you off track, read it, because it will make such a difference.
Wonderful. And he's done a new series now based on The Chimp Paradox, but instead of it being the book, it's a course. So you follow it. It's on Audible. It's free on Audible at the moment. It's called The Path Through the Jungle, and it uses the chimp model. The first chapter, it gets you to sit down and write out the qualities that you think make up a good person. And then another thing that I'd say to anybody early on in your weight loss, when you're making posts, don't worry whether anyone even reads them or likes them, because when you write something out, you're connecting the left and right side of your brain autobiographically and you're helping yourself understand and come to terms with things. So if you can start, you know, even if you don't want to post it online, if you can start sitting down and writing these feelings and thoughts out that you have, and then comparing them to what you think makes a good person, over time you're going to bring those two things closer and
Align those two things.
yeah. And they're never going to, the struggle in life is keeping those two things sort of together. And the moment you relax, they're gonna slip. And it's about enjoying keeping that, I think. Maybe.
I always say it's like parenting. Like that voice in my head is literally toddler Rachel, and in the same way Pops will like stomp her feet and chuck her cup when she wants something, that voice is doing the same thing. In the same way I parent Poppy, I have to parent myself some days. Like
Yeah.
I have to tell myself, no, Rach, you ain't doing that. Yes, Rach, you are going out for a run. No, you're not having that takeaway that you want. Like it is, I think sometimes you need to kind of be really strong in reinforcing those boundaries on yourself. And I find, I don't know about you, that the hard days get less and less. So the days I really struggle now and have to be really hard on myself are much fewer than the days I feel like I've got real food freedom. And I enjoy banking those calories and kind of seeing what I can explore with them versus, oh, I don't get to have that, I don't get to have this.
Yeah, so that's it exactly. You start like, if we look at things in terms of consistency, you start being somebody that consistently does. Sorry, I just read Faye's comment. I literally talk to myself all the time. I believe that. I believe that with all my heart. I remember what I was going to say now. Sorry.
Consistency.
Yeah. So now you are someone really that you can start to go, oh, if I, you know, do this that's slightly out of the plan, but on the whole, my calories are going to balance for the week. You can start being that little bit more, rather than having to manage to the minute, to the next meal, it starts to be an average of the week. And you can start learning to delay that last roll, having something to look forward to. You can start delaying that forward. So, sorry, just to go through those again. Solid plan, positive and honest. We're going to do it for the people that we love. When all of that's failing, we're just going to say, look, whatever it is, we're on this plan. If we still want a Big Mac in the morning, we'll have it. Because like I said, that was taming the chimp. And what I found from that was, you then wake up the next morning, you don't want the Big Mac. And not only that as well, you've proved to yourself that yesterday you didn't need it then either. And it's like you've said now, you are stronger. Those hard times, the best way to make a hard thing impossible is to give up at it. And the best way to make like an impossible thing like hard is by laying the foundations for it now. So the things that are hard, like if I hadn't have had this back injury anyway, so I'm treading water at the moment, but I want to always be looking at the things that are impossible now might be hard next year. The things that I'm doing now that are hard would have been impossible last year. And you're building on these foundations. And if you can take that first stage where you're getting that bam, 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 every week, this brilliant weight loss result, and it's filling our hearts and it's showing us why we're putting that work in. When we know eventually that curve's going to start to flatten out, we need to take that same winning feeling we're getting from, it's not from the number on the scale, but it's from following the plan that we were doing for the 5 days, because that's what's got that number over time to sort of go in the way we want it to. But we want to take that, if you put, you know that phrase, you put all your eggs in one basket. If all of your wins come from that number on the scale, that means if that number's not right, you're 100% unhappy. But if you've got 5 that you take all your pride from, and if one of them's out, you're still 80% rage. Like that's still pretty good. So we want to change from, at the start, things are really simple. We've got one goal, and then we want to move to having this pantheon of success, these KPIs, these things that we do or don't do day in, day out, that keeps all our scoreboards green. And it's a lovely place to be that. I'm not saying I'm not saying I'm there every single day, but ideally that's always where you're trying to get. So like for the last few months,
that's where you're aiming towards, isn't it? Like, and there's things, and like you say, when you've got more than one thing, so like one of mine is I started running. I never thought I'd be able to run. Like it's a ridiculous thing that I can even do it. And, you know, what would have been impossible last year would be the idea of doing a 10K. And exactly what you've just said now, the idea of that 10K I've got in February seems hard. It doesn't seem impossible, but it's like, oh, I'm gonna have to train for that. And who knows, I could be doing the marathon the year after that. Like, it does open up these possibilities that you never even thought of. But even though I haven't been able to go out running lately, because I've got other metrics that I kind of measure my
Yeah.
success on, that doesn't mean that I'm suddenly a failure and that I'm no good. Because I think sometimes if you do put everything on the scale, if you have one bad week and think, oh, I'm crap, then your motivation to continue goes. Whereas if you've got other things that you're like, no, I'm doing really good at this, really good at that. So whilst I've had a bad week here, I'm still driven to get there because I've got all these other things that I'm doing well in.
Exactly. And also as well, that number on the scale eventually is going to reach a point where we don't want it to change. So that metric eventually is going to become the most boring thing to be working around. And then the thing that I've really sort of, it will be different, probably especially different for sort of men to women, depending on what your goal is. But for me, realizing that, you know, your body composition makes up a lot more of what you look like in a photo than actually that number, if that makes sense. And so like now I can get on the scale and go, oh, well, you know, I've been injured for 6 months. I've only gained like 3 kilos, but I've probably, I mean, I was walking 50K and now I can do about 3 and I'm in agony. Like even today, like I was sort of sitting like this. So I was like a bit worried before we started, but I've had so much fun. I'll probably get up after this like, oh!
I know. Lou will be like trying to drag you into bed now.
No, see, I've like, I didn't want to take any like the medications or anything today, so I've literally just been sitting around like going, just don't hurt yourself, because yesterday I was like, I really hurt my back yesterday. I took my meds, then Siobhan messaged saying, oh, good luck on your life tonight. Literally, it was sick in my mouth. I thought, oh my god.
I'm going to be off my tits on Rachel's
Instagram. I talked to you for an hour on prescription heroin and diazepam. But
luckily, though, she was just having a mare and got her days all wrong.
Yeah, but to be honest, because I thought it was Saturday anyway, there was enough in me to just be like, oh, she seems like she's more together than I am. So I had to then go through. Even
I'm going to sit here and let her talk for an hour. Well, do you know what? It has been an hour, John. I don't know how it's been in an hour already, because I could literally sit and talk to you all night.
I've wanted to talk to you for ages. And one thing I do really want to say is, like, I've loved following you, right from the very start. With what I've literally watched you laying the foundations for what's next and talking about what you've done in the past. And that's where it's useful for people, because we don't really know what's in the future, but you can know what you've done. But you can always see it's brilliant. Like, you can see why you are where you are. Like, you get nothing for nothing, and it's just brilliant. I'm so grateful that you've asked me really today. You're a legend.
Oh, stop it. I would not have got to that post office if it hadn't been for you, John, let me tell you. I wouldn't have. And also, like, I know he's not here because he's a patient, he's recovering.
Oh,
but I know, like, your journey and like seeing other men on this journey is breaking that stigma as well, and meaning that guys can also change their lives and be healthy and happier. And I definitely will get Jamie and potentially Lou on so I can have an extra girl, and we'll do another live in the new year. Yeah, come and say hi.
I'm not terrible. I'm so sorry.
Just show your Christmas nails.
I have got Christmas nails.
Oh, I need to get mine done. Mine are awful. I've had these nails for 8 years now.
I love my spirit animal.
Oh, you too. Oh, John, thank you. Oh.
Yeah, take care, bud. It was lovely. Thank you. Bye.
Oh, thank you. And guys, any questions that we haven't answered, because I know we've been nattering, leave them in the comment. Don't be daft. Leave them in the comments. Me and John can go in after the video saved and answer. But John, thank you. I will see you soon. Take care, everyone. Bye.